In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, let's continue talking about emotional intelligence because it is quite important. Or we can say that one of the most important factors for success is developing emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence helps us better understand our emotions, control our emotions, and align our emotions with our purposes, such as goals. It will also help us better understand the emotions, feelings, and moods of other people, and thus help us control, manage, and administer to others. If you can manage your wife's motivations, you can effectively manage your wife better. If you can manage the intentions and emotions of your employee, you can manage your employee better. Today we want to talk about a rather important matter: the relationship between emotion and thought. How emotions affect thoughts. How through a feeling we arrive at a supposedly logical conclusion. What does it mean? Many times we have hatred towards something, and then we fall into a prejudice. What does it mean? For example, I hate a certain food. It is an emotion. It is hatred. It is a feeling. I hate it because of that food, that fruit. So, am I going to use my intellectual ability to seek arguments, excuses to justify my hatred? Do you understand? For example, I hate tea. If I hate tea, then I will do everything possible using my intellectual ability, thinking about how I can dismiss tea as a drink, for example, as cursed. And I am going to think, then I will have a subjective vision, meaning a vision with a tendency towards emotions. For example, in science, if someone hates a fact, a material, anything, then they will use science, thinking, to affirm what they hate, right? What does it mean? We, as human beings, have learned to use mental and intellectual skills to justify our emotions, our loves, and our hatreds. That will truly make us lose the purpose of life. And what does it mean? That hatred will lead us to fall into places we do not want to. A simple example. For instance, what is the religion you practice? Once you tell the truth, I will seek what true religion is, using my intellectual ability through logical arguments, exploring from one side to another, listening to a Christian, a Jew, a Muslim, Sunnis, Shiites, everyone, in order to reach what is the truth. That is how you will find the truth. But, on the other hand, you are a fervent follower of such a temple, such a church, such a, school of thought, because you love it. Yes, because you are attached to that thought, to that belief, to that church, to that I don't know what. So, in seeking the truth, you will use arguments. You will use your intellectual ability, your thinking, to justify what you love, to reject what you hate. Therefore, what you are doing is not a search for the truth. It means the purpose is to arrive at the truth. We call that fanaticism. We call that blindness. When a person loves to smoke, for example, they have a tendency towards homosexuality, which is an abomination in the Bible, in all sacred books, in the Old Testament, in the New Testament, and in the Holy Quran. It is a total curse for life. It means it is a reality. A reality that this dirty tendency, which is a vice, will lead a person to lose the advantage of a blessed life. They will lose the blessing of God's angels. They will lose answered prayers, and they will lose closeness to God because of that tendency, that emotion, that attachment to sin. Then that person will do everything possible, moving heaven and earth to seek supposedly logical arguments to justify that though abomination. What does that mean? If we do not develop emotional intelligence, that is, if we cannot control our emotions under the rule of the king, which is intellect, then we will be ruled. We will be dominated by emotions. This means that intellect will become a subject of emotions, and it will use intellect as an instrument to achieve its desires, to reach its purpose. So that person will have a life full of ambitions, a life full of desires, a life full of inconsistencies. They cannot resist. And because resistance, having patience, is the key to success, as many narratives indicate, the essence of faith is that if the most important point of faith is patience, patience is bitter, and desire, which is the pursuit of pleasures. Emotions hate patience. Therefore, that person, when they hate patience, will lose success. For example, I want to succeed in university. I want to get into the best university in the world, so I need to study a lot. To study a lot, I need to have patience. Saying no to what I like, saying no to what I desire, because it is a devotion, dedicating myself to studying to succeed. So if I can master my emotions, the love for these material things, then I can dedicate myself to studying. I can control my emotions by dedicating myself to study. It is a bitter patience, but in the end it has a sweet taste. It is a joy. But what helps me understand it better is intellect through logical arguments. If you study, you earn a lot of money. And if you study this, if you study, you can serve your neighbor better, you will be a good doctor, you will be a good religious person. This helps you understand your purpose better and helps you achieve your purpose. But if a person is only driven by their ambition, by their emotions, by their feelings, then that person is going to lose sight of their studies. What is the point of studying? And so when you go to sit down and talk to that person, they are going to present more than 10 supposedly logical arguments to escape from studying, because that requires patience. So whatever you discuss with that person, the least you can achieve is to reach an agreement, because that person does not have the intellectual path. Use the intellectual path. Brother, there is a difference between using the intellect and following the intellect. We can never have a dialogue with a person who follows their ambitions, their emotions, their desires, their lust. You can never, ever reach an agreement with Trump, because that person is driven by the desire for power, for ambition. He is the Pharaoh of his time. So Moses, who is the intellectual man, the wise one, the great prophet of God, a blessed man, through logical arguments, when he comes to speak with Pharaoh, everything he says is completely right. But Pharaoh rejects him. Supposedly Pharaoh makes this attempt to protect himself through some supposedly logical arguments, but he is about to lose. Then it begins to enter the second, we can say, the second stage, which is the military stage, and it starts to apply pressure. The person who does not follow the path of logic, of intellect, does not follow it, but rather uses it, which is the pharaonic, diabolical path of emotions, tendencies, and worldly attachments. That path, when it can no longer withstand logical arguments, will enter the second phase, which is the phase of violence. So it is clear who uses violence: the person who lacks logical arguments. If I can defend my faith through logical arguments, why do I need violence? So, people who have not been able to develop emotional intelligence will end up losing logical arguments. Then they will resort to violence. They start to fight. They start to hit. They start to do all the ugly things. These days, look at the problem we have in politics: a lack of emotional intelligence development. In family relationships, what we suffer from is a lack of development of emotional intelligence. Anywhere you go, you will see that we suffer from this. We are, I would say, surrounded by people who follow their own lust, ambition, emotion, desire, hatred, and love. This is called fanaticism. Fanaticism, whether in a job, in a football match, in a race, in an ethnicity, in a party of any kind, or in blind nationalism, is all condemned. The only way and the only path that can lead a human being to dialogue, not to monologue, is when you use your intellect for your attachments, for your desires, for your loves. The only path that can lead a human being to a peaceful life, a successful life, a happy, spiritual, strong, and patient life, is when we choose to follow the path of intellect, using intellect in an intellectual way, controlling what ambition is and controlling what emotion is. So, when intellect dominates humanity, we will have a world filled with peace, a world full of intelligent people, wise people, the world of the prophets. What Islam invites is to use the intellect not as an instrument, like the kingdom, like the path, like someone who helps you reach your way, no, but as a tool to use the intellect to achieve what you desire. This is what is happening in the West. So let us draw some conclusions. First, we know that there are some parts of the head that are affected by emotions. That means there are parts of the mind used for enthusiasm and emotions. There is another part of the mind that operates with logic. The question is, which part of the mind dominates the other? Does the emotional part dominate the logical part, or does the logical part dominate the emotional part? When a person's emotions are very strong, and when they are very irritated, that rage, that anger prevents them from taking logical actions. Why? Because the logical part of their mind no longer works, because the emotional part is dominant. So, when he is angry, he says all the profanity. He has no control. If I am angry, it is not to use my tongue like a snake, biting everyone, saying rude things, hurting my wife's heart. No, I cannot do that. It will damage my life tomorrow. How? And I will always have to go and apologize. I was angry. Why? Through apologies, you cannot fix what you have destroyed. Be careful. So these people generally, when they are very emotional, their intellect does not function because it is dominated, it is subservient. Then they say, I can no longer think clearly. Why can't you think clearly? Because emotions dominate you. I don't want to hear any arguments. Shut up. I don't want to listen anymore. Why don't you want to listen? Maybe I can help you through a logical argument. No, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to know anything about Islam. I don't want to know anything about religion. No, because you don't want to listen. If you are an intellectual human being, listen to it. If it has logic, accept it. If it does not have logic, reject it. No, it is that the fanaticism we suffer today, the fanaticism of blue blood, the fanaticism of Zionism, the fanaticism of those who are already racist, religious fanaticism, and scientific fanaticism. There are people who, due to having a tendency, for example, have studied a career, and that career has led them to a conclusion, because this is my career. It is the only solution. For example, he has studied medicine and chemistry extensively, and therefore rejects all forms of medicine that come from alternative medicine. 2001 of good herbs which comes from nature. He completely rejects it because his attachment lies elsewhere. But a logical person will always be an open person. They will be a cheerful, kind person to everyone, even if they do not agree with someone else's thoughts, but they do not hate them. Simple. They are going to sit down to talk, we are going to reach an agreement, and with great pleasure we will not make an agreement just as gladly. It will not lead you to hate another person who hates another human being. A person who is driven by emotion, by ambition. When a person says that my enthusiasms, my emotions dominate me, and I am always an inconsistent person, this person will gradually come to develop what we can call a complex, a psychological problem, which is to become an emotionally inconsistent being. So these people often make wrong decisions because they are sometimes emotional decisions. They lack logic. Why did you marry so and so? It's because I fell in love. It means I left reasoning, I left intellect, I left logical decisions, and only for one thing that they call love, and the truth is it's lust. I like the leg of the chest, and that's why I say I have fallen in love. It's not that you have fallen in love. Now you just want to have sex with her, period. That is not love. So after a while, she says, I am already disappointed. She let me down. I don't want to continue anymore. And that's why we are going to have so many divorces. Why? Because that person has reached a decision solely through an ambition, which is lust. Through an emotion. Emotional decisions are doomed to failure. On the contrary, logical intellectual decisions, because they are logical, because they are intelligent, then when time passes, you still say, how good what I have done is, may God bless it. Think about what we have discussed. Emotional intelligence, USAND, is the most important factor for success. In the next class, we will talk more about the topic, the Solomon and Comfortable methodology.